Hey, good Friday morning, everybody. BAM Weather Meteorologist Brett Waltz here, giving you a long-range forecast update and a detailed analysis of the severe weather threat that we're expecting over the next 2 days. It's a very notably strong storm system that's going to bring a variety of threats across the central and eastern parts of the country over the next 2 days. So, want to spend some time talking about that, and I'm actually going to start out here with the current satellite, guys, because one of the threats that's probably not being talked about as much is out in parts of Texas. We actually have a dust storm rolling across the state right now, so I'm going to freeze this for a second. I'm going to highlight what I'm seeing here on the satellite. Right now, blowing across the state, this is not cloud cover, this is dust. The sun's just kind of coming up in these areas over the past 20 or 30 minutes or so, but this is a dust storm that's blowing across northern parts of Texas into western Oklahoma, pushing pretty quickly off to the east. Some of these areas across the panhandle of Texas and into Oklahoma will be dealing with winds of as much as 70 to 80 miles per hour, non-thunderstorm wind gusts today associated with this storm system, guys. And so some extreme winds out here expected as we go throughout the day today, associated with this nearly record-breaking strong low pressure system that will be developing as we go further into the day today across parts of the Midwest. Here's the wide view right now, guys. You can see where some of the activities beginning to pop up across parts of the central United States. We'll look at our current radar. You can see snow out into the mountain west. Again, associated with this wind and this dust storm down here, really not a whole lot of precip. What the radar is probably picking up on here is the dust particles. If we turn on our alerts right now, guys, we can see warnings. Look how colorful that is. We've got red flag warnings for fire danger. We have a ton of high wind warnings. If we click on our high wind warning here, you can see wind gusts up to 80 miles per hour here in northern parts of Texas. That's going to include the Amarillo area. So just kind of insane to think about. And if we zoom out, you can see these high wind warnings and these red flag warnings spanning from Texas all the way up towards the Chicago area, just outside of the Chicago metro area. Red flag warnings into parts of Iowa. These areas, as we zoom in, these will be the areas that deal with fire danger this afternoon as we see gusty winds and low humidity values. And then severe weather as we work into this evening, and that's what I want to talk about next. I want to turn our attention to the severe weather threat. I'm going to turn our alerts off here, and we can see the latest outlook in terms of severe weather. Still a moderate risk. That is a 4 on a scale of 5 in terms of the severe weather threat meter. It has been expanded a little bit down into parts of western Tennessee, western Kentucky, and a little bit further into parts of Iowa as well, to include more of Des Moines, and again down here towards Memphis and Jackson, Tennessee, Paducah, Kentucky. But I think right now, based off what I'm seeing, this is kind of the bullseye area for both wind and tornadoes. If we take a look at the tornado risk specifically, actually, and this looks like it's been updated here since the last time that I checked. It's expanded even a little bit further down to the south. This is the 15% hatched area. That is 15% chance of a tornado within 25 miles of any location. The hatch indicates that there could be a couple of significant tornadoes, and I do think that it's kind of from St. Louis to Paducah to Memphis that we're going to be monitoring for maybe a couple of supercells and the risk of a stronger, maybe even potentially long track tornado in this red area. Now, if you're in the yellow area, certainly still at play for tornadoes, but I just foresee maybe the stronger tornado threat being in this red area. And then you can see the green color, the 2% risk and the 5% risk. I wouldn't be shocked if this needs to be trimmed down a little bit here across parts of central Indiana and southern Indiana, maybe ticked back to the west, just based off the storm's weakening as they push a little bit further to the east. Taking a look at the wind risk, this is maybe as big, if not a bigger threat. With this system, we have an extremely strong jet stream that's kind of stacked throughout the atmosphere. We've got these winds blowing in, the same winds really that's going to produce 80 mile per hour wind gusts in northern Texas, streaming right into the system as these storms develop, meaning that as storms develop and we get some evaporative cooling, we've got drier air kind of out ahead of the system. it's going to allow for cold, dense air to sink down to the surface, and I'm really concerned in this purple area for wind gusts as much as 70 to 80 miles per hour in some of these storms. And again, to highlight the areas from Des Moines to Quincy, St. Louis, Springfield, Illinois, Bloomington, Illinois, Paducah, Kentucky, just west of Evansville, just west of Terre Haute. This will be the area I am most concerned about some really, really strong wind gusts. Let's take a look at the simulated radar, guys, and just to give you a little bit of a sneak peek here of what's to come, a platform that will be coming out soon for weather modeling and weather model data, and I'm going to show you this to highlight the threat as we go throughout the day today. And so this is by 4 p.m., really not seeing much initiation of storms at this point. But as we go further into the evening hours, you can see storms beginning to develop across parts of eastern Nebraska, northern Missouri, western Missouri as well. I want to draw your attention a little bit down to the south as well in this area where we get some of these supercells to develop, and then they will push to the east. There's unimpeded flow, and when that happens, that can be when you get some of those longer track tornado risks to develop. As we continue to go through the forecast here, guys, you can see how the line expands, damaging winds throughout this line possible from Des Moines all the way down to the northern Arkansas region. And then as we work further into the evening hours, guys, you can see storms beginning to work across parts of Illinois. This is by about midnight Eastern time. And then as we go towards about 2 a.m., 3 a.m., guys, we've got these storms working into Indiana. You can see they start to get a little bit messier in nature. I'll move this over so you can see the time a little bit better, but start to get a little bit messier in nature. You can see they start to weaken. I wouldn't be shocked. This is 6 a.m. I think that this could be maybe a couple of hours too slow. 6 a.m., I wouldn't be shocked if it's more like 3 or 4 a.m., to be completely honest. We'll go back here and kind of roll through this one more time. 8 p.m., and again, I wouldn't be shocked if it's more like 6 p.m. And then as we go throughout the rest of the evening hours, you can see the evolution of this system. And then up to the north, guys, look at that. Probably blizzard conditions up here with some very heavy snow at times with this system. Real quick, and then we'll start to get into the extended range forecast. I want to show you the updraft helicity tracks. This is the composite radar, guys. I'm going to go back to the evening, highlighting where the helicity is with this system, which basically indicates strong upward motion and rotation. And you can kind of see the focus of this across central and southern parts of Missouri, kind of right through the St. Louis metro area is perhaps where the biggest concern will be for that tornado threat. And you can see how they weaken as it works further off to the east. If we take a look at the significant tornado parameter as well, we'll go back a couple of frames here for the evening hours. You can see, especially from St. Louis down to southern parts of Missouri, any storms that form in Arkansas and Mississippi, by the way, also have the capability of producing tornadoes, so that's something to keep in mind as well. In terms of the outlook, here's a look at the forecast for today. Let me zoom that back out. There we go, guys. The highly likely area, that darker red color, where significant severe weather will be possible, 70 to 80 mile per hour wind gusts, a few EF2 plus tornadoes, large hail, and then again weakening as it works further off to the east. Taking a look here real quick at tomorrow's threat. I'm not going to go into great detail with that right now, but if we look at tomorrow's threat, you can still see a highly likely area with multiple tornadoes possible down in Birmingham and Mississippi, Tuscaloosa, Huntsville, Oxford, but a secondary threat as well, especially for wind, maybe an isolated tornado from Louisville, Lexington, Nashville, Knoxville, Atlanta, all of these areas in here. So a busy couple of days, guys, in terms of severe weather. Now, with all that being said, I want to get into the extended range forecast. I don't want to forget about this part of the long range video, but I did want to be sure to talk about the severe threat the next few days. In terms of the pattern ahead, we continue to deal with some ups and downs. You can see the warmth out ahead of the storm system, brief shot of some cooler air, then we warm right back up as we get into next week, and then a stronger front possible as we get into next Thursday and Friday. Some well below normal temperatures for a couple of days for the eastern third of the U.S., but look at what happens. We head into the following week, the 23rd, 24th of the month, we warm right back up, and there's another cold front, and we cool back down. I wouldn't be shocked by the end of the period here. This is the 27th, 28th. if there were some cooler trends in this area based off what I see in East Asia. But the theme ahead, guys, if you just look at the average over the next 14 days, you're going to average out warmer than normal for the central and eastern U.S., but you're going to see a good amount of ups and downs. And the EPS and the GEFS overall for the U.S., pretty similar here with their forecast the next 14 days. Beyond that, guys, I do think that we start to feel the effects of this final sudden stratospheric warming event. It should open the door for more high pressure developing over the higher latitudes to end the month of March and into the start of April. You can kind of see that here towards the end of the run of the EPS, higher pressure and warmer air developing near Greenland, near Alaska, and in the Arctic. That's important because it will probably prevent the more notable warmth from reestablishing, at least for a time, especially in the eastern U.S. On top of that, I want to look at our tropical forcing. We should be moving the MJO through the maritime continent and Indonesia and starting to get thunderstorm activity in the Pacific Ocean. A year that was very, very similar to that was 2011. It's by far still the best analog that I have right now. And here is what it did in the weeks 3 and 4 time frame, the 28th to the 10th. Strangely enough, ironically, whatever you want to call it, it's kind of crazy how close it is. The data looks almost identical to what 2011 did in this time frame. Really doesn't get any closer than that in terms of an analog match to what the data has. And it's not just the EPS, it's the CFS weekly too. You can see its forecast, especially week 3 maybe being a little bit cooler east, then warming up in a more widespread fashion in the central U.S. Again, I think it matches this idea very, very well. And there's support from the North Pacific too. You take a look, this is the 30th to the 6th time frame. You kind of see that cooler air to the north and to the east, some warmer air in the south, especially the south central U.S. Very, very similar to this type of a look. And so we've got data and analogs and pattern drivers all talking here. What happened in 2011 for precip? Well, it was dry across the central part of the country, especially the south central U.S. And I do think it's time to start having a conversation about getting concerned about drought conditions really expanding in this region and here across the southern and the southwest plains. We've got all of these strong low pressure systems moving in. We're going to have a lot of dryness ahead. We're going to have hotter than normal conditions. We've got dust ongoing, dust storms and high winds. I am concerned about this area and increasing drought conditions as we go throughout this spring. So that's something to keep in mind if you're in those areas. And the EPS weekly, again, it matches up pretty close to that idea. Still a little bit more active east, which has been in the forecast throughout spring for a long time, but drier across parts of the central and the southern plains. And I would say the CFS weekly, it's a little bit messier, but it resembles the same type of a signal. And so if I had to kind of break down the pattern, I'm going to show the EPS here. As we get into weeks 3 and 4, you can kind of see the cooler air to the north, warmer air to the south, kind of evolving east with time, and then warming up as we get into the week 4 time frame, especially for the central part of the country. The other thing I want to note with 2011, and we're already seeing it here with severe weather threats in the month of March, April was an extremely active severe weather month, and even in this time frame there was a big severe weather outbreak, especially for wind, but 68 tornadoes, pretty notable there as well, on April 4th. I'm not saying that it's going to resemble this perfectly. What I am highlighting here is that I do think the risk of severe weather continues to be elevated going into the month of April. Averaging everything out, guys, here's a look at our weeks 3 and 4 temperature forecast. I don't think we're looking at notable cold, but some cooler shots of air across the northern and eastern part of the country. I think possible, especially for the week 3 time frame. I do think that, given some of the dryness in the plains, and given the potential warm-up as we work through the week 4 time frame, and the week 3 time frame may even start warm in the central U.S. as well. Given all of that, I still think we're warmer than normal for much of the plains, maybe much above normal with temperatures in the central plains and into the southern plains. For precip, the concern is much below normal precip across the southern and the southwest plains. I still think we're active, though, across the Tennessee Valley, the lower Ohio Valley, and kind of up the East Coast with severe weather opportunities as well. Guys, that's all I have for today's forecast. Thank you for bearing with me with a little bit of a longer video to get through that severe weather threat. If you all have questions, don't hesitate to reach out on the Clarity platform. Guys, have a great rest of your day, and please stay safe over the next few days.